I was an avid consumer of internet media. So, I mean, and I was at a point where I was no longer afraid to Google Scientology.
Right.
You know?
And you started working doing research. I mean,
Yeah.
like when you start getting into the real world and you start doing things like normal people do and you're Googling stuff, I mean, that's what he was doing all day long, researching.
Right, but what I don't think people understand is what he said that is very important is it took me a year to feel comfortable to Google Scientology.
The mindset that I had was very, very hard to shake. And what shook it was in 2009 when the St. Petersburg Times did the Truth Rundown series of articles. And high-level executives from the church, like Marty Rathbun and Mike Rinder and Tom DeVox, were saying how incredibly abusive the environment was at international management. For Scientology to be true, international management had to be a utopia. Nothing but highly trained Scientologists and veteran Sea Org members. If that place is an unpleasant and abusive place, then Scientology is not true. And so it was electrifying. It was eye-opening. All Scientologists know who Mike Rinder is. They see him 5 times a year at almost every international event, and he's a key speaker, introduced by David Miscavige.
Right.
In my entire, it's embarrassing to look back on and admit, in my entire time on staff and working for the church, never occurred to me that anything I was told was false.
Right.
Never.
Right.
It didn't even cross my mind.
Never.
That is what kept me in.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, the St. Petersburg Times Truth Rundown was the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
Me and my mom were both, reading and becoming aware of this data at the same time.
Right.
And we were both coming to the same conclusions at the same time.
Yeah.
My mom and her boyfriend had gotten his son into Scientology, and his son was now grown and worked full-time for the church. And her boyfriend felt very guilty that he'd gotten his son down this direction in life. So they sat down with his son and started talking to them about the stuff they'd been reading online. But he worked for the local church, so he wrote them up that they were now sympathizers of the world's biggest suppressive persons. And she got declared. So they say she'd gone to the dark side, is how Scientologists would put it. And essentially, I get told I'm going to be declared if I don't disconnect from my mom. So for about a year, I pretend to be disconnected from my mom.
And you weren't?
No.
Oh.
Eventually, I get turned in.
By whom?
Our kid's nanny.
Shut the f up. So she found out, like, why? Because she saw...
The kids would make comments that made it seem like they were still seeing their Gigi.
Their grandma?
Yeah.
Like, grandma this, grandma that.
She wrote it up and turned it into the church.
So she wrote a knowledge report.
Yeah.
On you.
Yeah. Before my mom got declared, the church actually calls my employer because the guy is a VIP in Scientology. They let him know before me that my mom's going to be declared. So keep in mind, the guy who's employing me and my wife is asking me on the spot in his office, basically, if I want to lose my job and my friends and my family.
So what happens?
He laid me off just before I got declared, right?
So you lose your job.
I lose my job. They call Heather in. They say, you've got to divorce your husband or you're going to be declared.
Just as a matter of fact.
You've got to divorce your husband or
she says,
that's not going to work out for me. We have 3 kids together.
Okay.
And within 2 weeks, my kids had been kicked out of their school and Heather had lost her job.